He chose Bai Lu over everything. It started as just another day on set. Lights blinding. Makeup done. Lines rehearsed. Dylan Wang sat silently in his dressing room, the script on his lap, his phone face down. But his heart was elsewhere. Outside the room, there was noise, movement, crew members preparing for the next shoot. But inside Dylan's world, everything had paused, because he had just received a message. One line, from Bai Lu. She's being forced off the drama. A scandal. Fabricated. Someone high up wanted her out. He stared at the message, reading it again and again, trying to process what it meant, trying to convince himself it wasn't real. But it was real, and it shattered everything. Dylan stood up, still dressed in costume, still wired for sound. He walked straight past his manager, his assistant, past the lighting crew, and stepped onto set. The director looked up, smiled, gestured toward his mark. But Dylan didn't move. He asked one question. Where is Bai Lu? There was silence. Then a hesitant voice answered.
She's gone.
She left 5 minutes ago. Car was waiting outside. That was all he needed. He took off the mic, dropped the script, turned, and walked away. The cameras were still rolling. Someone was filming a behind-the-scenes feature. And suddenly, they had captured something no one expected. Dylan Wang walking off set mid-scene. No explanation. No warning. Just raw emotion carved into his face. His phone rang again. His manager. Producers. His agency. He ignored them all. He was already outside. Already scanning for any sign of her.
Then
he saw her car, stuck at the end of the lot. Traffic holding it up for just a moment longer. He ran, shouting her name. Bai Lu. She turned in the back seat, eyes wide, not expecting to see him. Not like this. The driver hesitated, then stopped. Dylan opened the door, got in beside her, and shut it firmly. No one knows what was said in that car. But 15 minutes later, it had pulled into a small coffee shop on the edge of the city. They sat together. No cameras, no stylists, no scripts. Just two people, broken by the same industry, holding on to what little they had left. She spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. They told me if I stayed, the sponsors would pull out. They wanted me out quietly, without drama. They offered me silence and money. He stared at her, heart pounding. Then he said it. Then let them take the money. Because I am not doing another scene without you. Her lips trembled. She reached across the table, took his hand. You would really throw your career for this?
For me.
And he smiled. A slow, heavy smile that carried all the weight he had carried for months. You are not a decision. You are not a career risk. You are the only thing in this world that feels real to me. News broke that same night. Dylan Wang had terminated his contract. He was walking away from the most anticipated drama of the year. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said he was sick. Some said he had broken down. But only a few knew the truth. The next morning, a fan spotted him and Bai Lu at a train station.
Disguised.
Holding hands. Waiting for a train heading nowhere public. They were running. But not from each other. From everything else. They traveled for days. Small cities. Hidden resorts. Airbnb check-ins under fake names. For a moment, they were just people again. Not actors. Not headlines. Not property of the internet. One night, it rained so heavily the power went out at their cottage. They sat beside the fireplace, blankets wrapped around them. And Bai Lu whispered, "What happens when this moment ends? When the world finds us again?" Dylan pulled her closer. "Then we give them something real to talk about. Something they can't erase." He opened a notebook. Inside were handwritten letters. One for his fans. One for his agency. One for his future self. He was ready to walk away from the machine. But he was not walking away from her. The letters were released a week later. Fans cried. Some turned away. But most stood by him. Because love like that. Honest. Messy. Fearless. deserved more than silence. Bai Lu stood beside him at the press conference. Her eyes fierce. Her voice steady. They told me to leave quietly. But I choose to speak now. Because love is not a scandal. It is not a career killer. It is the only thing I will never regret. And just like that, two stars stopped being idols and became humans again. Not everyone forgave them. Not everyone clapped. But somewhere in a sea of fans, a young couple held hands tighter, inspired by the courage to choose love, even when the world says no. And in a quiet home, far from lights and cameras, Dylan Wang and Bai Lu finally found peace in a world they built for themselves, where scripts could no longer define them, and every word spoken was finally their own. The next morning was quiet, too quiet for someone like Dylan. He woke up in a city that no longer knew his name. His face was off billboards, his name erased from the call sheet. His life had changed overnight. And yet, he felt lighter. Bai Lu stood by the hotel window, staring out at a world that once loved her, now judging her. She turned to him, eyes glassy,
and asked,
"Did I ruin everything for you?" Dylan crossed the room in 2 strides, held her face in his hands,
and said,
"You saved me from a life I never chose. You reminded me of who I am. Not an idol, not a brand, just a man. And you are the only thing that ever made that matter." They spent the next few days in hiding, changing cities, hotels, even their names. There were moments of laughter, like when they argued over instant noodles in a convenience store, or when they missed their bus because she stopped to feed a street cat. But there were also moments, dark ones. The media storm had grown louder. Accusations flew in every direction. Rumors spread that Dylan was banned, that Bai Lu was blacklisted, that they had run away to get married, that they were done with acting forever. None of it was true, but none of it mattered. They had each other, and that was the only truth they cared about. One night, as rain tapped softly on the window, Bai Lu sat beside him on the floor, holding an old script she used to read. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I miss it. I miss being her. The character I created. The world I lived in. I miss acting." Dylan looked at her, at the fire that had dimmed in her eyes, and he knew it was time. The next morning, he made a call to a director who owed him a favor. He pitched a new script, a love story between 2 broken people who found healing in one another. And he asked only one thing, that Bai Lu would star in it. The director hesitated, but Dylan's name still carried weight. He agreed. Bai Lu stared at him when he told her. "You did what?" He smiled. "I gave up a contract for you. I can fight for one chance too." They returned to the city, not as the scandalous couple the media painted, but as creators, dreamers, people who were ready to rebuild what the world tried to destroy. At the first table read, Bai Lu's hands trembled as she turned the page. But Dylan was beside her, and when their eyes met, there was no fear, only fire. Production began.
Slowly,
Quietly, but with heart. Behind the scenes, their romance remained untouched, unannounced, undeniable. Fans started to whisper, "Are they together? They have to be. Look at how he looks at her." And they did, because Dylan looked at her like she held the sky in her palms. Like every moment with her was the final scene of the greatest film ever made. Then came the premiere. Red carpet.
lights,
Flashes. And 1,000 questions. Journalists crowded them, shouting, "Is it true? Are you two in love?" Bai Lu paused, looked at Dylan, and for once, he nodded. She smiled, took his hand, and said,
yes,
"We are not hiding anymore." The world exploded. Social media caught fire. Some called it reckless. Some called it brave. But everyone watched, because no one could turn away from a love that powerful. The film broke records. But the real story, the one behind the screen, was even greater. It was the story of a man who walked away from fame, of a woman who stood back up when the world knocked her down, and of a love that was never supposed to survive, but did. Because sometimes, love does not follow contracts, rules, or expectations. Sometimes, it simply refuses to end. Their film had become a global sensation. Viewers from Seoul to San Francisco could not get enough. Not just of the love story on screen, but the story behind it. The truth that slipped between each stolen glance. The weight behind every word. Dylan and Bai Lu